This is Fresh Air. I'm David Bean Cooley, sitting in for Terry Gross.
So that's, coming along. I'm working with a vocal coach, strengthening the
That's Neil Patrick Harris, practicing his evil laugh as the aspiring title villain of Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. Dr. Horrible is a 3-part mini-musical created for the internet, with music, lyrics, and plot co-written by Joss Whedon of Buffy the Vampire Slayer fame. It's as good as the classic musical episode Whedon wrote for Buffy. Here's a taste, in which Harris is singing about the young beauty he met at the local laundromat.
Laundry day, see you there, under things, tumbling. Wanna say, love your hair, here I go, mumbling. With my freeze ray I will stop the world. With my freeze ray I will find the time to find the words to tell you how you make me feel. What's the phrase? Like a fool, kinda sick, special needs, anyways. With my freeze ray I will stop the pain. It's not a death ray or an ice beam, that's all Johnny Snow. I just think you need time to know that I'm the guy to make it real. The feelings you don't dare to feel, I'll bend the world to our will, and we'll make time stand still.
Neil Patrick Harris began his career on TV, playing a young genius doctor on Doogie Howser, MD. And he's there now, playing the womanizing Barney on the CBS sitcom How I Met Your Mother, a role for which he was just nominated for an Emmy. But his musical turn in Dr. Horrible is no accident. He sang the role of Tobias in a West Coast concert version of Stephen Sondheim's Sweeney Todd. He then went on to perform other works by Sondheim, including the plum role of Lee Harvey Oswald in the Broadway revival of Sondheim's Assassins. Terry spoke with Neil Patrick Harris in 2005 and asked why he and Stephen Sondheim connected so well.
Steve and I became friends less through the work we were doing together and more through our mutual love of games and puzzles. He's a gamesman, and I love me some puzzles and murder mysteries and that sort of that genre, and he does too. So we started talking about computer games and crosswords, and he used to do a big thing where he'd have people come to his house, and he'd have set up this big group puzzle thing where you'd go from room to room and solve puzzles that would take you to sort of a treasure hunt, take you to a clue to another place. And I was infatuated by that idea. I think that stuff is great. And so we became friendly that way. And I think it's better to talk to someone as incredible as Stephen Sondheim about things other than his work, because I think he's probably dealing with people that tell him how great his work is and how amazing he is all the time. So I sort of tried to just talk to him about regular things that I liked, that I knew he liked as well. I'm so impressed by him in a structural way, because he writes music and writes vocal parts with very specific actors' thoughts in mind. Not just how they're going to say the words, but actual thoughts. He'll put a quarter rest instead of an eighth rest, or a full bar's rest, because the character in his mind is taking time to think of what to say next. Or he'll repeat a stanza twice, and on the third time, the last note will raise up a third step. That's not just because he was bored, but he's actually thinking that the character on the third line is repeating to himself and then realizing something, and that realization would cause you to raise your pitch at a third. So I think, not unlike Shakespeare, he maps out what the actor should do in his mind very specifically in what he does.
Would you apply what you just said to a Sondheim song that you've performed?
Yeah, like Not While I'm Around that Tobias sings has a bunch of weird minor thirds because he's in thought process and sort of confused by the whole thing, repeats himself a lot. In Evening Primrose, there's a great song, If You Can Find Me, I'm Here, that sort of repeats itself a lot, but has little minor changes to it that are as he's walking around, and if he's startled by something, there's a 2-bar pause while he looks around before he commences again.
I'd like to play your song from Sweeney Todd, Not While I'm Around. And your character in this, you're like the young apprentice of Mrs. Lovett, the character who bakes dead bodies into pies. And the dead
Right.
bodies are the people that she and Sweeney Todd murder. And the pies become both way of covering up the bodies and a way of selling cheap pies. And Tobias doesn't realize that Mrs. Lovett is in on these murders, so he sings her this beautiful song in the hopes that he can kind of warn her and protect her from Sweeney. Would you talk a little bit about this song and about any advice or insights that Sondheim gave you about it?
Sure. Tobias is a bit of a simpleton. He was going around selling elixirs with another barber named Pirelli, and I sort of backstoried that he was beaten and abused and a little slow in the brain. Sweeney is a very vengeful, single-minded character who only wants revenge for being put in jail, and this judge who did that, he's trying to fix that wrong. And Mrs. Lovett is nothing but sort of wistful and a little kooky and sort of infatuated with Sweeney's passion. So Tobias witnesses Sweeney Todd being villainous, but he's sort of too simple to really put all the pieces together. He's not an incredibly articulate person. And his love and appreciation for Mrs. Lovett just comes on a more maternal way. He just never had anyone who was taking care of him be loving. It was always sort of awful and abusive. So Steve's notes to me were just to make sure that as you're singing the Tobias parts, that it's realizations that you're having at the moment. He's not someone who has a lot of foresight or is able to look back and put pieces together. So when he's singing things, he's really coming up with the thought and the idea while he's saying them. And his desire to protect Mrs. Lovett doesn't come from anything that he knows, just something that he feels.
And also, this is a character who's actually kind of weak. He's not only not very bright, but he's not particularly strong. He's not particularly big. He's not particularly
It was originally
threatening.
It was originally done on Broadway by Ken Jennings, who is who's a smaller, diminutive kind of guy, and I'm 6 feet tall, so he was sort of the archetype that I had to go from. So I sort of added a bit of a limp. I twisted one of my feet in, sort of Kevin Spacey, Kaiser Soze style, and I sort of pitched my voice up a little Mandy Patinkin-ish, and sort of gave him a bit of a hobble. So. Because I didn't want to be physically imposing at all. In fact, I wanted to be a bit sympathetic physically, someone who's not capable of just standing himself up and making the right choice. He has to have others sort of make choices for him, and so I needed to sort of physicalize that and vocalize that. If you hear the song, you'll hear my voice is very kind of pingy the whole time. It's not how I normally sing.
May I say you're also doing a little hip-hop thing with your hands? Did you notice that?
Am I hip-hop?
Yeah.
I like to keep it real. Throw a little gangster in there
exactly.
as well.
You're doing slightly like hip-hop hands.
Word up.
Was that intentional?
Yes. I threw a little Puff Daddy in there as well, just for the youngsters. You got to play to every demographic, right?
Okay. So let's hear you in this production of Sweeney Todd, which was shown a couple of years ago on public television. And we're also going to hear Patti LuPone in the background.
Nothing's gonna harm you, not while I'm around.
Of course not, dear, and why should it?
Nothing's gonna harm you, no sir, not while I'm around.
What do you mean a man?
Demons are prowling everywhere nowadays.
And so there are, dear.
I'll send them howling, I don't care, I got ways.
Of course you do. What a sweet, affectionate child it is.
No one's gonna hurt you, no one's gonna dare.
I know what Toby deserves.
Others can desert you, not to worry, whistle, I'll be there.
Here, have a nice bonbon.
Demons will charm you with a smile for a while, but in time, nothing can harm you, not while I'm around.
That's Neil Patrick Harris from a production of Sweeney Todd, the Stephen Sondheim musical.
It's so strange to hear those things because I'm not really a trained vocalist, so it brings me back to standing there at the New York Philharmonic at Avery Fisher Hall at Lincoln Center with that orchestra there and frigging Patti LuPone and George Hearn and all these amazing operatic people. And I sing okay, but I've not, I didn't study for 6 years with some amazing person or anything. I have a vocal coach, but having started on television and then sort of veered into theater, it was definitely one of those pinch me, I can't believe I'm here moments.
How old were you when you auditioned for Doogie Howser, and how did you find out about the part and even consider auditioning for it?
Well, we never wanted to do TV. The first thing I did was a movie called Clara's Heart with Whoopi Goldberg, and that sort of came about through a gentleman named Mark Medoff, who's a playwright, and he wrote Children of a Lesser God, and he wrote Clara's Heart. I went to a drama camp for a week at New Mexico State University, and Mark thought I'd be right to be in this movie. I ended up getting the movie and got an agent, so that's how my career started. And then we just never wanted to do television because it would uproot us so much. It was fun and fine to go away for 4 or 6 weeks to Big Bear and make a movie with Patrick Duffy and Lonnie Anderson and have a fun little summer and then go back to your regular life. But the conceit of doing a television show was just so all-encompassing. Both of my parents were attorneys, and it just seemed crazy to uproot us all. So there was one caveat. We said, well, if it's a really good TV show, if it's like a Stephen Bochco show, because my parents loved LA Law, being lawyers, loved Hill Street Blues, or if it's something really good like that, then we'll consider it. Well, sure enough, a script comes down the pipe for a little precocious teenage doctor kid by Stephen Bochco, of all people. So we said we might as well read it, or we might as well audition for it, I guess. And so I had sort of an in. The casting director of that show knew my manager, then agent Bo Shoot, very well, and so he thought, he already had sort of an inner track for it. So I got to go meet Stephen Bochco really before casting had even begun. And then sure enough, months later, they hadn't cast the role yet, and I went back in and re-auditioned and got the job, and we were indeed uprooted to L.A., and that was sort of how it happened. It was strange. Not many half-hour shows were one camera by someone who was so noted for doing long-form television, like Stephen Bochco. So it was a bit of a hybrid show at the time, and it was a lot of work.
And you were, 14?
No, a little bit older. I filmed the pilot when I was 15, and we started the series properly when I had just turned 16. So it was about 16 to 19.
So did the producers interrogate you to make sure that you could handle, emotionally handle being uprooted and doing television and becoming famous? And kind of give you some idea of how this might change your life? Because it's a big change for anybody, but for particularly like a 15-year-old. So what did they do to prepare you or to test you beforehand?
Stephen Bochco did sit me and my parents down at a restaurant right when it all began and sort of said, look, this is going to be potentially a big chapter in your life and a big giant wave